The Zelda series on the NES only consisted of two games, The Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link. While the first game was very well received by gamers everywhere, the second one had less of a great reputation. I believe that most Zelda fans enjoy Zelda 2 for what it is, but they may not hold it in as high of regard as they do other Zelda games in the series. I, for one, really like the game. It's one of my favorites in the series.
2 years after Zelda 2, StarTropics was released. While a lot of gamers have fond memories of this game, it wasn't as widely known as either Zelda. Gamers who did play it noticed similarities between the island-hopping adventure and the Hyrule Fantasy. A Link to the Past was still a ways off, and sometimes I think, what would a Zelda 3 look like on the NES? Could StarTropics have been that game? I feel like it could have been a natural progression of the Zelda series, and from a gameplay perspective, the better game. Let's take a look. StarTropics was released to North America and later Europe, but never in Japan. It's the story of a kid, Mike Jones, who goes to visit his archaeologist uncle, Dr. Jones, on a tropical island in the South Seas. Dr. Jones disappears and Mike sets off to find out what happened to him. The gameplay all takes place in a top-down perspective in two different modes. A map mode where everything looks like it's straight out of a Final Fantasy or Dragon Quest game, and the main gameplay mode that looks a lot more like a Zelda game. You dive into dungeons and caves in search of clues as to what happened to Dr. Jones, fighting monsters with your trusty yo-yo and solving puzzles along the way. The control takes a bit of getting used to, as Mike moves on a grid, where pressing the control pad in the direction you want to move once simply faces Mike in that direction, and pressing the button again gets him moving. You are also able to hop onto tiles that may trigger events within a room, such as opening a door or making a treasure chest appear. These tiles also appear in the middle of water or lava, helping Mike with passage across the perilous hazards. It's a really good game, and even though it obviously has some roots in The Legend of Zelda, it's a unique enough experience to stand out on its own. People rarely call StarTropics a Zelda clone, and it certainly doesn't straight up feel like one. But there are some similarities and obvious callbacks to the Hyrule Fantasy. Let's take a look. StarTropics and Zelda have a lot of interesting similarities, but there are a ton of obvious ones. The file selection screen, the use of hearts and heart containers for health, the overhead view, the need to beat enemies to open the path to the next room, dark rooms, upgrading main weapons, collecting items that do everything from refill your health to exposing hidden enemies to doing a ton of damage to bad guys, etc. There are other similarities that aren't so obvious. The tiles Mike jumps on to trigger puzzles and doors are reminiscent of the blocks Link pushes in the original Zelda title. The different play modes between the main combat and the world exploration in StarTropics mirrors that of Zelda 2 pretty well. Zelda 2 is still the only Zelda game that uses a live system. StarTropics does it too. In both games, you can find an item that gives you an extra life. StarTropics takes it one step further, however, and can be a bit of a gamble, giving you more than one extra life or even taking an extra life away. Zelda 2 and StarTropics both have the need for item or magic conservation. In StarTropics, you only have a limited use of whatever item you pick up. Zelda 2 uses a magic meter, which can be drawn from to power any number of spells. Both StarTropics and Zelda 2 are more linear than the original Zelda game. There isn't nearly as much opportunity to take levels out of order in either game. Zelda 2 uses item restrictions to keep you from advancing early, while StarTropics simply uses a chapter structure. You can't go back to earlier areas in StarTropics, but the only reason you ever need to in Zelda 2 is to pick up a non-essential item you missed, or to traverse back through the world after a game over. So obviously, StarTropics takes a lot of inspiration from the Zelda series, but I feel that it also builds upon these two games to create a superior game from the gameplay perspective. While the setting doesn't quite strike the same chord in me as the fantasy atmosphere present in Zelda, you could almost put Mike Jones in green clothes, give him a sword, turn Dr. J into Zelda, and you'd have a Zelda game. Those aliens may give us trouble though, but replace them with a perilous mountain or a castle, and you got yourself a Zelda 3 on the NES. StarTropics is a more focused game, and while you lose that grand world to explore that was present in Zelda 1, you aren't left scratching your head at where to go next. There are still plenty of secrets to find, and if you aren't a hardcore veteran of the game, new playthroughs yield new discoveries, like a heart container you missed the first time through, or a secret room with much needed life restoration items. After Zelda 2, reverting back to the overhead view was the right direction to take for a sequel. StarTropics did this, and was even able to incorporate some of those ideas that Zelda 2 brought to the table. The differentiation between the explorable world and the action sequences from Zelda 2 are better pulled off in StarTropics. Gone are the random encounters and the lack of focus on puzzles in favor of combat. StarTropics keeps the lives system, but incorporates checkpoints throughout each level, with a game over sending you back to the beginning of the dungeon rather than throwing you back to the beginning of the game. StarTropics also automatically saves your game for you before and after each action sequence or dungeon. I like this better than having to remember to hit that save option after a game over to make sure your progress is safe from a random dog running into your controller cord and knocking your NES to the ground, powering off your game and losing hours of progress. Some of the gameplay changes that may not feel very Zelda-like today would have been more accepted back in 1990. Items that you lose after death and grid-based movement, for example, could have easily been incorporated without surprising too many people. The Zelda series hadn't seen A Link to the Past yet, so many of the accepted Zelda gameplay standards hadn't really been set. After seeing such drastic changes in the sequel to the original Zelda, and even the changes that the West saw with Super Mario Bros. 2, it would have just been par for the course. Obviously, this is just a bunch of what-ifs, because A Link to the Past was already in development by the time StarTropics was released. It's sometimes fun to think what if Nintendo would have let another team develop a Zelda 3 on the NES. But they decided to put all their efforts into A Link to the Past for the Super Nintendo. Regardless, I really enjoyed my time with StarTropics, and I obviously love A Link to the Past. So StarTropics can stay StarTropics, and we didn't need a Zelda 3 on the NES anyway. Later. Zelda had a sequel. Zelda had a threequel. If Zelda had a pequel,